Welcome. You are about to take a journey to a place of the divine love within with Deborah Beauvais on the Love by Intuition show. For the next hour, allow her to prepare you in becoming a magnet for a profound love-infused relationship by identifying and focusing on solutions through love. Awaken the light within and let your essence shine. And now, here's Deborah Beauvais on Love by Intuition, all part of the Dream Vision 7 radio network.
Welcome, everyone. Bonjour, mes amis. And yes, here I am, Deborah Beauvais, founder and owner of the Dream Vision 7 radio network. If you're tuning in for the first time, we are a Boston-based, fully operating, syndicated radio station with all the bells and whistles. You can listen to us wherever you are in the world. You can ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 radio. You can listen in the cars, wherever you are. So tune in and get inspired, as we say. Well, I'm very enthused about my guest today. He was actually on The Anxious Voyage with Mark O'Brien, and catch his show. It's 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time every Monday. My guest is Jeff Johnston, and he has quite a story. He's been on quite a journey. On October 4th, 2016, Jeff lost his son Seth at age 23 to fentanyl poisoning. Recognizing his own addictions to alcohol and gambling, Jeff took a stand on December 24, 2017, and committed himself to mental health advocacy. He's launched the Undeterred Podcast, the Choices Network. He has an app for young kids called Brighton. He's written a book, and that's what we're going to be talking about, among other things. This One's for You, an inspirational journey through addictions, death, and meaning. And he wasn't done with all that, because on June 29, 2021, Jeff lost his wife, Prudence, at age 46 to alcoholism. Still undeterred and determined, on May 12, 2022, he embarked on the Living Undeterred Tour, a 95-day, 20,000-mile odyssey across the USA. So we're going to hear all kinds of things from Jeff. We're honored to have you, Jeff, so welcome to the show.
Well, Deborah, I am absolutely honored to have this conversation today. I've been really looking forward to this. Love by Intuition show. What a great name. What a great way to start this off tonight.
Oh, thank you. And it's 20 years old, this particular show that I've had. It's just amazing the time that goes by. But thank you for that. And so my thoughts right now is courage, of all the things that you have experienced and lived, and then all the things that you're implementing in Seth's name. So first of all, can you talk about, and from your perspective, the difference between suicide and overdose? Because we lost our niece at 19 with an overdose, and I had been thinking that she committed suicide, but is it really suicide, or is it an overdose because of the addiction?
Wow, that's a great way to start this conversation, because when I think about my wife, with her alcohol, prescription pills, and so forth, it was really grief that took her. The death certificate says alcohol, but I know it was suicide by alcohol. Whereas Seth's situation was a little different, because he was actually getting better, and he had been incarcerated for a while in prison and had been released. So his future looked really bright, and he had met a girl that was into heroin, and unfortunately a week or so after using the batch had fentanyl, and he was poisoned. So, two deaths. Obviously, the pain is very similar, but really two different types of scenarios. Both were preventable. Both were very predictable outcomes. But that's a great question. I mean, I think Seth was just trying to get high. I think my wife was trying to die.
Yeah, that makes sense. It really does. It's a hard one because everyone has their perspective, and even the professionals will have what they believe is going on. But we're going to get into all of that too, as far as the genes and epigenetics and choice, which I think I really enjoyed, reading what you have conveyed about choice. But let's start with, what was Seth like?
Great question. He died at 23 from heroin laced with fentanyl, but that wasn't who he was. And, part of my legacy, I'm 58, so I've got a lot of good years ahead of me, is to make sure that he never truly dies, because the moment I stop talking about him or living intentionally through him, he dies. And I can't allow that to happen. So Seth was like any other kid. I mean, I have two other boys. Ian's currently 23 and Roman's 21. Seth would have been 30 this year. But, I coached him in basketball. He was very athletic, highly competitive. He picked up the guitar, especially electric guitar, very well. Very funny. No different than any other 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old kid. I mean, just your all-American kid in Midwest, Iowa. I live right. I'm a flyover state, so pretty much had it made, and then there's this genesis that started when I reverse engineer his death back to where this really started, because I have a lot of parents asking me, Deborah, Jeff, I got these two boys, my sons are struggling. Where did you first see this unraveling? And so that's something we can talk about later, but I think it's important to lean into these things that happen in our lives and to learn from them. So obviously we don't want to repeat them, but we don't want any other family to ever go through what we went through. But Seth was like any other kid. That's the bottom line. There wasn't anything abnormal until about 16, 15 years old, when teachers started saying on his parent-teacher conferences, he doesn't pay attention, he's a little disruptive, he's not turning in his homework. And so I just thought, heck, I was that way, Deborah, at 15. I've seen my school reports. I have full-blown attention deficit, and but back in the day, we just kind of worked through these things. My dad would send me out in the woods with my three brothers, and we would get sticks and build forts or fight each other. And today, we take them to the doctor, and they walk out with a bottle of Adderall. And so I'm just very perplexed on why we've given up on rolling up the sleeves and really helping kids self-assess, self-regulate, autonomous learn. All these things are important. And today we just take them to doctors, and that's what I did with Seth. And so, I'm throwing myself under the bus tonight, because that's one thing I missed that I wish I would have tried to look at other things first before I did that, But, here I am. That's what I'm trying to rectify.
Right. I mean, I agree with you about the doctors, because, they're trained to dole out meds. I mean, that's what they're trained for. And they're, unfortunately, in the medical world, they're not thinking of preventative. They're thinking about treating the cause, the issue, not the root. And so our system needs a lot of change, and it's coming. So when so how do you cope? First of all, with the loss, and I'm thinking you wrote this book, This One's for You, before Prudence passed, and then now you have another death, and as we know, you come to believe, at least I do, that many of us think that, we're eternal. We never, we're done with this particular body, but we're eternal. Our souls, that's what it is, eternal. However, I always bring this up when talking about people that are not in our space anymore. They may be there, but we're not resonating in a higher frequency to actually see them. So we're we don't have them participating in our day-to-day. So how do you feel about that, and how do you cope knowing that both of them are on the other side, as I say?
That's a great question. And, boy, where do I start with that? How do I cope? First of all, I've had a fairly pragmatic relationship with death. In my book, I write about death being the ultimate teacher. It's the ultimate appraiser of a life well lived, as I like to say. And so I've really struggled with this simple fact. I am not religious. I'm secular in nature, so I consider myself agnostic. So I've really struggled with the death of half my family, and there is a sense of utility or comfort in knowing that they are some other place. But as an agnostic, I've struggled with that. So my spiritual journey is complicated because, I'm probably not the normal person that goes through these types of situations because I don't really have anything to fall back on, and but I'm extremely spiritual. I mean, that's why I wanted to be on your show. I followed some of your stuff. I've been on your profiles, and I'm like, love, compassion, empathy. It's like, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. So whatever that's called, I've always been comfortable not knowing. And so maybe in a way that helps me with dealing with death is that, I don't really think too much about where they're at or what they're doing because I'm so focused on creating heaven on earth right now for me while I'm here. And so I don't really believe in my heart I have to die to go heaven to see him. I see him every day. And I trick myself with these games quite constantly, and I can talk a little bit about some of my coping mechanisms, little games I play so I can enjoy the best remaining years I have in my life. But that is a tough thing because a lot of people ask me what my faith is, and in the book, I think when you saw that, I talk about faith. Really, no one owns that word. It's a word that I have faith that you and I are going to have a good conversation tonight. I have faith. I'm gonna go to bed tonight and get up in the morning. So I think sometimes people think they own a word, or groups of people or tribes think they own a word. And so when someone says, "What's your faith?" I said, "I have faith. You're a good person." And so that's what drives me is faith. I love that word, but it's just not the same definition as a lot of people use. And why does it matter? I mean, at the end of the day, if you're a good person, I'm a good person, and I live an intentional life. I don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat. Try to be a good role model to my kids. I work with people struggling with alcohol and gambling. Why does it really matter what I think about me when I'm gone? I mean, I've always wondered why that has to be such a big hot potato in society today. And if you're a good person, I'm probably not even going to ask you those type of questions, But that was a tough thing when I was going through this because, man, initially I was really wondering, where are they, and I struggled with that. And I think part of my spiritual journey is not necessarily looking for the answer because I'm not sure I'm going to find it, but being comfortable with not knowing. And then with that knowledge, what can I do today to improve the lives of other people? And through doing, being in service of others, it keeps me above ground. It gives me meaning and purpose. It took me 50 years to find meaning and purpose through death, to become, like I say, become a better man, not a bitter man.
Right, I like that. And I've come to realize, too, that it's a privilege to be on earth.
Oh, yeah.
And, not everyone has the opportunity to be on earth. So I believe that we should live fully, not only for ourselves, but for those that may not be here any longer. And, there are so much trauma in the world today, and for us not to enjoy a perfect day that has sun and the birds are singing and all of that, we're really doing a disservice to others because it is, even with the trauma, even with the pain and the loss and everything, it's easier to say 20 years later, but even with all of that, I'm in gratitude for having this life, the experiences. I'm in gratitude to have my loved one as long as I did. And when you come from that perspective, that really helps you heal and see those things from a different lens instead of being in the heaviness of the grief all the time.
I like to say to people, Deborah, that, you know, the beauty in all of life, like you just said, I have found a way to have an equal respect and reverence for death. Mm-hmm. So to me, I have a healthy relationship with death. And I'll share with you an incident that happened over Christmas after my wife died at some point, unless you want me to share it now. It's up to you. But to me, it's an important part of the story because it's the first time that I really looked the abyss right in the face and with no fear. And fortunately, I came out of it a better person, but I came close to not having this conversation tonight.
Mm-hmm. I understand. So share what you were experiencing.
Well, my wife died on June 29th, 2021, and it was the day after our youngest son turned 18, you know, which is a tough thing for him the rest of his life.
That's right.
And then my mom died. My mom died 4 months later, and it was the day after we put our, 14-year-old cat down. So I had this belief that this cloud of death was, following me. It's like, man almighty, are you kidding me? In the last 5 years, I've lost my son, my mom, my cat, my wife. It's like... And that Christmas, I was at my house. My 2 boys were gone. They were out, and it was Friday. And I was by myself, and, you know, there was these boxes that we had sitting in the living room that I had been walking by. You know, my wife had died in June, so they've been sitting there. They're 7 boxes, Deborah. I call them now the 7 boxes of doom. And I kept walking by them. And I realized, you know, over that Friday that they weren't going to get up and leave by themselves. And so me being Mr. Living Undeterred and me, you know, I'm strong. I wrote a book. I got a podcast. You know, I can handle anything. And I pulled up a chair, and I sat down, and I opened up the first box and was like, wow, the first box was Seth, just pictures of basketball and graduation and prom and notes he's written to me, how proud he was I was his dad, and just notes he wrote to his little brothers when he was in prison. And you know, I just, as my son now says jokingly, you know, Dad, you went from living undeterred to living underdeterred. You know, that's kind of a family joke. But I went from, cool. You know, I went from really being confident to that first box getting knocked down the ladder rung, a few rungs, and I was wounded. I'm like, all right, I'm going to set this box aside. And so, you know, me being overconfident, I opened the next box, and it was my wife and our wedding pictures and trips to Europe and our first house we built together, and, you know, a love letter I wrote when I proposed to her on New Year's Eve in 1999. And I just went, again, deeper and deeper, and that was on a Friday, and I don't remember anything very well that whole weekend. I know I broke my computer against the wall. I shut my phone off, plugged all my electronics in the house. And as I like to say when I give my keynotes, is I called every negative person I could find in my head and had the biggest pity party you could possibly have. I just opened up the floodgates. Everybody that's negative that can make me worse, I'm inviting you over, you know, live rent-free in my head for the weekend. Mm-hmm. And on Saturday night, I went into my closet, opened up my safe, and got my gun out. And I sat down in my closet and counted backwards to 10. It got to 3, and I did this for I don't know how many hours. I mean, I don't remember. I didn't black out, but I don't remember anything about that weekend. And then Sunday, my business partner's wife came over because everyone was trying to reach me. I mean, everyone's like, where's Jeff? I haven't heard from him Friday. And my kids are worried, and they were out of town staying at friends' houses. And she knocked on the door and came in. And it's like that movie scene where you see the guy laying there with pizza boxes and, you know, tequila. I don't drink, so it's like I wasn't drinking, fortunately, but I was sprawled out in my underwear and a T-shirt laying in my living room floor on Sunday afternoon. And I came so close to ending it that the thing that scared me the most was I was so comfortable at that decision. I was, and why I didn't do it, I get asked that a lot. My granddaughter and my 2 boys. Mm-hmm. If I don't have them in my life, I'm probably not here. And so I don't say this story for people to text me and say, "Oh, Jeff, I'm sorry." It's like, I thank the sympathy and pity boat a long time ago, and it's just by choice. I accept it. If you tell me right now I feel sorry for you, Jeff, that's great. I love you. I appreciate it, but I'm certainly not telling these stories for that reason. I think the reason I want to share these stories is that I don't really think I'm anything special. I'm just this dad from Iowa, and I've just found really creative ways to be resilient. And, for every 2 steps I make back, I want to make sure I make 3 steps forward. That way I end the day on a net positive. And so, but that's the only really time I would say I had a brush with suicide. That's the only time. And, am I grateful I didn't do it? Holy cow. Man, right. I pinch myself every day that I'm the luckiest person on the planet because I came so close. To ending
and it may be that you had to go in that.
Yeah.
You had to be in that space to get to where you are now.
Part of my spiritual journey.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're at, and I agree. What keeps us here are the kids. And that's it in a nutshell. For some, maybe that doesn't work for them. But for those of us that have been there, it's the kids that keep us here. And then the gratitude for being here. But it takes time. It's a journey. And I think it's important to realize that all these things don't happen overnight, and you're on the other side of it. You learn to live with what has happened, but you grow your soul, and you grow and you create, and there's all these things that happen that would have never happened if you chose the other direction. So that's courage, I want to say. And with that said, we need to take our first break. So everyone stay with us. Stay right where you are. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
Experience a different yet profound healing with Reconnective Healing. Includes yet expands beyond any and all known forms of energy healing. The Reconnective Healing spectrum is comprised of the full healing and evolutionary continuum of energy, light, and information. It allows for healings that are not just physical, not just mental, not just emotional, yet go beyond that to bring healing that includes the evolution of your very being and essence. Deborah Beauvais, trained and certified by world-renowned Dr. Eric Pearl, offers appointment hours at Seekonk Family Chiropractic in Seekonk, Massachusetts. For questions or to set up both distance or local sessions, call Deborah at 508-431-1959. Again, 508-431-1959. Or go to lovebyintuition.com. That's lovebyintuition.com.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to DreamVision7Radio.com.
After narrowly surviving the attack on Sandy Hook Elementary, first-grade teacher Caitlin Roy DeBellis was left searching for answers that would never come. Eventually, she chose to focus on questions that could be answered. How do I make sure this tragedy doesn't define us? How do we get our control back? Those 2 questions led her to found the 501c3 nonprofit organization Classes for Classes. When gifts poured into their classroom, she decided they would help someone else by paying it forward and being kind. This developed into a social network which allows K-8 classrooms to connect so that every student in the United States can learn these crucial lessons. Classes for Classes' mission is to build students' social-emotional intelligence by connecting them to care. All C4C projects are crowd-funded. Any teacher in the U.S. can visit classesforclasses.org. That's classes, the number 4, classes.org. Sign up today.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids children's book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love Song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on CD Baby or iTunes.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And welcome back. We are live, so anyone that would like to call in, ask Jeff a question or share a comment, we welcome all. Bob is in the house, so you can call in 833-220-1200. It's toll free, 833-220-1200, and Bob will put you right through live to us. So don't be shy and don't wait until the last minute. Okay, we are with Jeff Johnston. He has written a book about his son and his family life. This one's for you, an inspirational journey through addiction, death, and meaning. And we have so much to talk about, but I think, not because the hour goes by so quickly, let's talk about we can talk about your podcast, the Undeterred Podcast, but I'm also interested in the Choices Network. It's a nonprofit that promotes and encourages healthy lifestyles for teens, and there's so much work that you're doing with the teens, and you even have an app, Brighton, an mental health wellness app for young kids. And isn't it from reading your book, it appears to be that you have to start with the kids at 14?
Yeah, so I did the tour, did the book, did the podcast, and I kind of was thinking to myself, what's next? I don't really think I'm doing what I need to be doing, and it's just that inner critic we all have. And so I thought to myself, an app, that's where kids are at. Gen Z is kind of where my heart is. I want to move a little bit further upstream. Right now, most of the attention in, Western medicine is based on pharmacological or treatment-based. And, if that was working, we would see, all these kids getting better, but the numbers are coming back, and they're just getting exponentially worse. And you can blame COVID or social media. It doesn't really matter what you blame. The fact is that the outcomes aren't improving, and kids are just taking pills to numb the reality of what they're going through. So, and prevention was just too fear-based to me. So after Seth died, I would go to schools and I would tell this sad story, and I would cry, and I would show pictures of my son, and I just kind of called myself Angry Fentanyl Dad. And so I get in my car afterwards, Deborah, and I just start literally crying, and I just go, where's the love in that message? Where's the inspiration? I'm just scaring kids not to do drugs, and that's never worked. Prohibition was a failure. So I'm like, okay, I got to come up with something new. I don't want to be treatment. I don't want to just build something where I can introduce your kids to go see doctors so they could get Adderall and Prozac. That wasn't my legacy. And I don't want to scare kids. I don't want to just yell at them, don't do drugs, because that's never worked. So what's next? Well, we decided to just invent a new category called Empowered Mental Wellness. So we invented a category, so that makes us the industry leader, apparently. And the idea behind the app was I did financial planning for 32 years. So in my previous life, I owned a wealth management firm here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I took this idea of financial planning, and I thought, let's introduce a generation of 2.56 billion humans. The largest generation in human history is Gen Z right now, 14 to 26.
Really? I didn't.
Yes, by far, it's the largest generation. And they've already replaced the boomers in the workplace, too. And millennials and Gen X is next. So So Gen Z is a big generation, and they're on their phones. And so I thought, let's introduce them to this idea of mental wellness, not health. I hate the word mental health. Let's do mental wellness planning. Let's teach them to build their own personal mental wellness plan, like adults have a financial plan. You have a business plan, a workout plan, diet plan. But it seems like we're not introducing kids to the idea of planning for their mental wellness. It's episodic. Kid has a problem, take him to the doctor, walk out with a bottle of pills. Or they're a little bit overweight, get them a gym membership, they go work out. It's like everything's defensive and reactive. And again, I was a guilty parent of that. So I'm not criticizing parents. I was right in the middle of that. And so the app idea, that's how
people don't know. If I may interject, it's just that
go ahead.
People aren't getting educated. They're not doing research. They're not doing, they may need the time, but really you can get educated on a lot of these things and see a better path.
But it's deeper than education, because education, raising awareness doesn't work. Everybody knows what fentanyl is. Everybody can spell fentanyl, but deaths went from 46,000 when Seth died to 106,000 last year. Overdoses did. So raising awareness does not work in a lot of situations, and there's a good example. So we can educate kids till we turn blue about the dangers of fentanyl, but we sit back and just watch the deaths get higher and higher. So it has to be something where you're empowering and inspiring them to change behavior. It has to be a new arrow in the quiver. It has to be introduced. And so that's my contribution. That's a solution to the problem. It's not the solution, but it's a solution. And I think what we're doing with our Brighton initiative is one of a kind. And we've taken in investments, for example, you have asset classes like stocks, bonds, and real estate, right? Okay, what would be the asset classes for youth mental wellness? Well, for us, it was health, wealth, and purpose. So our planning app is predicated on autonomous learning, self-assessing, self-regulating. So it's very engaging, not addicting, but engaging. And the kids get points, so we've gamified it so they can relate to that. And it's based on curriculum and education on those three topics. So I agree with you. Education's important. You can't over-educate. But with ChatGPT and Google and all the information that people can get, it's a snap of a finger, but the outcomes are still getting worse. That's a big problem. And so what's the right answer? I don't know. But I'm trying something different.
Which is amazing, and it is needed, and it's working from my understanding, correct?
Yeah, it is. We have 1,000 kids on the app right now. We're in 14 countries. We've got a college in New York that has agreed to have us implement the app for it's great for us because we don't have a lot of data yet. So one thing we need is to show people that I have a white paper that I've submitted for peer review where I'm demonstrating the intersection of health, wealth, and purpose in optimizing youth mental wellness. That's the name of my paper. And there's nothing out there. There's no app. There's no class. There's no, evidence that shows that these three things combined are going to increase outcomes. But if you take each individual, item, certainly getting a healthy relationship with money will help college students. So the number one stressor for older Gen Z is financial insecurity. I mean, more than anything else. But no one talks about it in the mental health realm. Every podcast or thing I went on, everyone talked about, let's do breath work, let's do exercise, and that's great. But college kids are worried about money. No one's teaching about that. 7% of college kids have an addiction to gambling right now on their phones. No one's talking about that.
Really?
So these are little things that we're trying to bring to the table to come to market where there's this massive demand and there's big voids, and that's what we've built. And it's exciting, Deborah, but at the same time, I'm 58 and we've got a young team, which is great because, a couple of years I'll be 60 and I need to be around these young adults and they inspire me. And so when adults criticize the youth today, I'm like, well, there's a lot of really powerful kids out there that are going to change the world. And we have to stop trying to think we need to save them. We need to invest in them. That's the mindset we need.
Right. Right. Because when especially if they're getting involved with the creativity, I feel as though that really makes a huge difference when you have a passion for something and it's making a difference in the world. So you're building a legacy regardless of whether you're 14 or 75. Right. And, so
you did mention something about 14. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to answer your question because I kind of got off track. But age 14 is the age of first use in the United States. And half of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14. So one of the challenges we have in building the app was that if you're under, I think, 13 in a lot of states, you have to have parental, whatever that word is. You have to have parental permission. There you go. And so our app is really geared at 14 to 26. So we're a little bit above that, but there's a lot of, each state has different rules. And so for us to make our go-to-market a little bit cleaner, we had to move the age up a little bit. But I'm a big advocate in having these conversations with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds about what is mental health, what is wellness. And I came up with this thing when I talk to kids. It's pretty simple to correlate with kids, but I call it the Living Undeterred mindset, and it's real simple. It's just 3 things. It's just expectations, preparation, and evolution. And what I mean is that is have a fair set of expectations. I think a lot of times we all run through life just with these unrealistic expectations. I'm going to have, Elon Musk money. I'm going to look like Brad Pitt. I'm going to be able to bench press 400 pounds. I'm going to, and these things don't happen. Or you see other people on social media gaslighting and imposter syndrome. And it's like, so these expectations, I think you need to have fair expectations and challenge yourself, but they have to be realistic. And then preparation is imperative. Expect the best, prepare for the worst. That's what I learned when I was a Boy Scout many years ago. You don't want to run paranoid through life, but you want to make sure that you're in good shape, you exercise, you eat well, you don't watch a lot of toxicity on TV. You're preparing for when you get that call and your son dies or your spouse dies, that you're in a really good mental place to handle it. And if you're drunk, massively overweight, drinking, smoking cigarettes and drinking sugary drinks all day long, and now something happens, which inevitably it does, and we don't always die in the right order. Sometimes it's, backwards, but, you got to be prepared. And then the last is evolution. You got to be able to learn to adapt and adjust. And I have been blessed through death to be on this amazing spiritual journey. And just meeting you today is just a great opportunity for me to have a conversation with someone I've never spoken with before. And people listening to this show, hopefully 1 or 2 things you and I talk about can change the direction of their life. And it comes down to choices. And that's why I named my nonprofit The Choices Network, was it's all about, it's all about the choices that we make, those forks in the road. I really am a big believer that you have a lot more agency over your choices and you're less of a victim than you give yourself credit.
I agree. Well, since you mentioned the Choices Network, let's talk about that, because you have 2 pieces, the DSI and ABC, and we only have a couple of minutes before we go to break, but we can start on it. So explain that and what you're finding there.
Yeah, the DSI was the Don't Start Initiative, and that was kind of just something that popped in my head. This was probably about 3 years ago. Okay. And the ABC is easy for kids to understand because it's ABC, but it stands for Awareness, Breathing, and Choosing. And so what we want to do is get kids in the habit of when they're in a situation of heightened anxiety or stress or sadness is starting to creep in, which are normal human emotions that we just want to pathologize today, is be aware. You have to first identify, okay, here I am. I don't want to be depressed. So sadness comes first, apparently. And so what's before sadness? Well, it's those little triggers, those little thoughts that start popping in my head. So you have to be aware. And then second is breathing. Breath work is huge. I meditate 45 minutes every morning. I practice breath work all day long. And then ultimately you have to choose. So you're aware of your situation, you breathe, and then you make a choice. And whatever choice you make, If it's the wrong choice, you make it right. And if it's the right choice, congratulations. That way you can't really make a bad choice. You just make a choice.
Right. But how do you make it right?
Well, for example, if you decide you want to have a beer at a football game and you're 14 and you get drunk with your friends, and that was a poor choice, well, you make it right by not doing it again. You learn from it. Instead of punishing yourself, beating yourself up. I've been sober 7 years. I don't drink anymore. I don't like to call myself sober because that implies I'm in a fight. I just don't drink. But if I drank tonight, right now, you and I got off the air, I said, God, what a great show. I'm going to go have a glass of wine. I wouldn't torture myself. I made a poor choice, but I would learn from it. I just wouldn't do it again. And that's maybe helps me being pragmatic that way. A lot of people create these stories in their mind, these narratives. You're always free to tell yourself a new story about your past. So if you made a bad decision, you're free to tell yourself a new story about it and make it a life lesson, not a curse. And that's, unfortunately, I think I saw a stat, like 88% of what we worry about in the future never comes true.
Right.
And that's that's good information kids need to learn, because all they do is sit around and worry.
Right, absolutely. And realizing that our mind creates these things and that we have control over our mind is key, because a lot of people, kids, parents, people in general, a lot of people don't realize that what's running their lives and every aspect is what the mind is telling them, and they need to tune into that and listen to what you're telling yourself. And when you first do that, it's very surprising. And then you have to take ownership and embrace the whole thing with love and move forward.
Yeah, I agree. That's good.
Yeah. Well, we need to take a second break. Everyone, there's still time for you to call. Bob is in the house. We'll put you through. The number 833-220-1200. This show is just packed with insight and information, and Jeff would love to answer a question or two, so call us. Thank you. We'll be back in a moment.
Take a journey to a place of the divine love within with Deborah Beauvais on the Love by Intuition Show, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Eastern. Our message is love in the purest form. The light within us all is a guide to recall our beginning, to learn to love self and humankind, and to feel the higher power of our own divinity. To attract love, one needs to be loved. Come join us and step into this glorious vibration called love.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids children's book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love Song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on CD Baby or iTunes.
Are miracles real? Can you move from mayhem to miracles? 30 prominent authors say yes as they share their high fives and down lows of challenges, abuse, addiction, and love. Experience hope, the magic elixir of miracles, through the personal stories of New York Times best-selling authors James Redfield, Dr. Bernie Siegel, Sister Jenna, Reverend Temple Hayes, and many more. If you like bestsellers, chaos to clarity, and crappy to happy, you'll love crying and laughing through mayhem to miracles. Sacred stories of transformational hope. Available now on Amazon and in bookstores worldwide.
It's a child's job to play, to learn, and to have fun. It's an adult's job to keep them safe. Did you know that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before the age of 18? Every day, families enter the Children's Advocacy Center because a child's courage to tell someone what happened to them. Keeping our children safe starts with a conversation. This is Michelle Aranger, Executive Director of the Children's Advocacy Center. Learn more on how to keep your child safe. Visit cacofbc.org. This message made possible by the Fall River Rotary Club.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we are back. To get in touch with Jeff, you can go on the nonprofit site, the choicesnetwork.org. Again, thechoicesnetwork.org. Is that where, if people want to get in touch with you, Jeff, they should go through that, or how else would they?
I think actually the best place would be our Brighton app website and my email, because that's where everything's running through right now, because that's where most of my attention is on our youth mental wellness app. So our website is www.brightn, BRIGHTN, app.com. So BRIGHTN app.com. That's our website, and my email is just jeff@brightenapp.com. So jeff@brightenapp.com. And before I forget, Brighton has a neat story why we named the app Brighton.
Yes.
When Seth died, 3 weeks after he died, his daughter was born. So, through death, I was gifted a wonderful, beautiful, angelic granddaughter, and her name is Brighton. It's spelled differently than our app for obvious reasons, but, people ask, why'd you do a startup company? Why didn't you retire? You're 58. It's like, nah,
retire.
It's not going to, this is not going to, it's not in the cards for me, probably ever. I love what I do. I enjoy the fight. I enjoy the journey. I just can't see me ever sitting on a beach, and I scuba dive, so I love the ocean, but I just can't see me sitting on a beach wasting away. I just can't. To me, for Jeff Johnston, that just is not in the cards, at least at 58 years old. I love creativity. I love conversation. I get tremendous amount of self-worth out of building this app. And I feel like I'm 23 in my heart.
Right, which is beautiful. Well, you're just evolving. You're in a path of evolution, and that's really exciting. And you realize, as much as the beach is excellent, and I love the mindless part of it, and just taking in the beauty of nature. But to keep you want to make a difference. That's what's been happening on my end too. You want to make a difference on this earth before you leave. However you do it is really up to you, because we're all unique in that way with our gifts.
It was funny, Deb. I have to tell you this. I was meeting with a spiritual individual on a spiritual retreat I was on a while back. And we were in a circle, like an intentional circle that you've probably been in many of those. And I was sharing my story, and the guy just said, I think I said something like, well, I just feel compelled, like I have to do something. And he's like, why? He's like, why do you feel like you have to leave this legacy that this journey you on? Why do you feel like you have to do this? And I can't answer that. I don't. That's that agnosticism mindset of mine. Is I'm okay not knowing why. I can easily. The easy answer is, Seth and Brighton and Prudence and my other two boys and my 92-year-old dad. Those are easy answers. But the reality is, I have this ember in me that gets really down to going out sometimes, like it did in that Christmas when I had the gun to my head, and then it just gets this spark, and it just fires back up, and it's like, we all have it. That's the thing. I don't think I'm anything special. You have it. All your listeners have it. Bob has it. It's like, but what triggers that spark? I don't know. That's the thing. I just that's what I love about this journey. If I knew the answer, I would stop looking. I don't want to stop looking. I love the journey. I love not knowing. It's like a strength not knowing, because it keeps you curious. If someone said, I'm going to tell you the secrets of the universe, I'm going to say, I don't want to know.
Yeah. Well, the curiosity is really loads of fun. And what happens a lot of times is, however much we learn in that respect, it really comes back to a simplistic thing as, what do we really know? And so you can gather up all the education, all the things that you think you need, but still what you're saying is exactly what a lot of people come to realize. You know, what do we really know after all that?
I think just caring for people, leading with love, empathy, compassion. It's like, you know, this fear and scarcity world we live in is just not working very well. And it hasn't.
It hasn't. I mean, we've been killing each other for however many thousands of years, and we're still doing it. We still don't get it.
So what's the answer?
Well, love is the answer, and love always wins. But unfortunately, because people are killing each other, there will be, as we know, a lot of people that end up dying on the other side because we're still killing each other. But I truly believe that we need to feed love. We need to feed that, because those of us that are doing so, that love will continue to rise. And I'd like to think that the grandchildren will live, and their children will live in a better world, coming together. I mean, there's so many things we need to do for the earth, and we could all be coming together to do that in harmony. But instead,
and we are. A lot of us are, but there's also a lot of us that aren't, you know.
Right, and it's
and just providing support for those people that are suffering. You know, there's always going to be that, because suffering is just part of the human experience. And I know one of the best books I ever read, and anybody that's listening hasn't read this, they should, is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It's quoted all the time. And he said in the book, suffering will be my opportunity. And that was like, you know, you have these moments in your life where you hear something or you see something, you're like, wow, that like really hit me. When I read that in his book, I actually wrote it down, and then I reframed it. And what I say when I talk to people is, pain is unavoidable, suffering is a choice. And so the pain of burying my son, the pain of burying my wife, the pain of that weekend when I had the gun to my head, the pain of, you know, anything else that happens in my life, my mom dying, that's unavoidable. That's the difference between why we're humans and we're not AI. We're not, you know, androids and cyborgs.
Yes.
Okay? So why do we want to numb that? Why do we want to push that away with prescription pills? And so what I've been trying to, I hate the word teach, but I'm trying to just show people is suffering is a choice. And the length of time and the intensity, the duration of your suffering, I believe, and I don't have any background in this other than just my lived experience, I really believe we have a lot more agency in the suffering part. We can't really do much about the pain, but the suffering. And so when we just attach and identify with suffering and misery and sorrow and, you know, pity and sympathy, it's so toxic to our soul. And it's hard to get away from that. So you just got to set these daily things you have to do. For me, it's meditation, eating healthy, exercise, you know, no toxicity. And I have to do that every day. I know that I'll go back to that spot in my closet, and I avoid that like the plague, because I'm human. And I'm not Mr. Living Undeterred. I'm just Jeff Johnston, a dad from Iowa. And I'm very susceptible to going back. And I just work super hard at never going back, because I want to live to be 100. I want to have a great, what years I have left, I want to have it be the best possible experience I can have. And I'm not going to do it drunk and angry and miserable.
Right. There's so much joy in life. You want to live fully. You want to feel every goodness that, I mean, and I feel as though that's why we're here. That's why we came to the earth, because, and here I go, and I understand that you're in a different place, but.
No, it's fine. We're in the same place. Yeah.
Yes.
We define things, we define things differently.
Yes.
But we're in the same place.
I don't do organized religion and all of that, but I have a beautiful relationship with light, God, Creator, whatever you want to call it.
I call it my source. I don't know what that is, but I call it my source.
Yes, that's a good term too. And so to be in that space and enjoy this tiny little things, a breeze coming through the window when it's a hot, hot day. I mean, to experience that. That's why we came to, because in light we don't have emotions. We have them here. We have the heavy, the dark, the light. Everything is here, and we can feel it. And as much as it can be traumatizing, we can feel it, and that's what makes us really enjoy the happy, the light, all the goodness, because we have experienced that heavy, ugly stuff. I mean, that's another whole. But anyway, we'll have to have you back, Jeff.
Oh, I love this. I mean, and if I'm going to start my podcast in January. So my 3-year podcast, Living Undeterred, I actually put on hold because I went around the United States and I did my tour and then I did the app. So I couldn't. I was feeling like I was getting too watered down. You know, I mean, people were getting like 20% of me, and I needed to be more committed to 2 or 3 things, not 10. Right. But I really like the podcast. I could do this all day long. I love these conversations. I learn something every single time I have a conversation with somebody.
Yes, and I do too. It
goes into my chapters of the story of my life. So this conversation tonight, a few things I'll take from this. I'll probably write a blog about it, or I'll post something. And it's like that. Today I wrote a page for the chapter of the story of the book of my life. And that's what we all do. We just write these pages every day. And sometimes they're hard pages to write, but they're still pages of, and that's why I can't stop talking about Seth and Prudence, Deborah, because they die when I stop talking about them.
Right.
And that's just not going to happen on my watch.
Right. Well, we only have a minute, but I want you to, what do you need? What do you need for Brighton? What are you looking for from the listeners? What do you need?
Well, I need anybody that's got children, anybody that's got a Gen Zer in their family, a young adult, and they're interested in learning more about our app. They can just go to our website. So it's www.brightnapp.com, or they can email me. The app is live on the App Store. I think in a couple days we'll have some new upgrades kick in. So, and you could just go Brighton Wellness on the App Store, and it's available. But I just need as many kids to try what we're trying to show and validate that it works so we can help more kids. That's right now I just need the data. And I get that by having young adults try the app and see what they think. And if they don't like it, then we'll make changes.
Right. Very good. All right. Well, we need to fly. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I loved it. I enjoyed it all, and we want to hear more from you as well. So we'll have you back maybe after the first of the year and see what's happening. And I just know we have plenty to talk about.
Well, and after 20 years, I know you're going to be around for 20 more doing this. So anytime you want to get me back on, I'm game.
Okay, Jeff. All right. Well, you take good care. And for everyone out there listening, share the show. Listen to it more than once. Buy the book, This One's for You, by Jeff Johnston. Just put that in, This One's for You, Jeff Johnston. And get the book. Go on his site. Look at everything that he does and think about getting in touch with him, with your kids. You can save lives. You can save lives. Okay, until the next time we come together in love, au revoir.
Are you seeking a clearer path to love? Then tune in to the Love by Intuition show next week. All designed to your highest good. To contact Deborah Beauvais, owner of Empowered Connections, call her at 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or link on to lovebyintuition.com. Remember, we are all one, and we are all part of the miracle of love.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.